I expected to be a journalist. You know, I went to school to study journalism at Michigan State and Wayne State University. So ultimately, I thought I would be a journalist or a documentary filmmaker. And I'm going back to my roots with that. I'm working on documentary film now. But in 1994, my father passed away in Detroit. I lost my dad at 22, and then I was writing poetry, but I read my first poem literally at my father's funeral. And people were afterwards said, "Well, what is that poem?" I said, "Well, I wrote it this morning for my dad," you know. And they said, "Well, can we have copies? We like to buy it." People in my family, and I was like, "What are you talking about? Buy my poem?" And so I was like, "Okay." So I started going to the open mics, you know, right in downtown Detroit, and we didn't have a lot of them, but we went to this place called Pour Me Cafe, and I started reading there, and I got these really beautiful responses. And you'd be surprised, there were a lot of women voices on that scene. And so, you know, always you think about hip hop, poetry was the same way, very kind of male dominated. And I have a husky voice, so I get on the mic and I was confident. I would read my poem. And then I was going to a student at Wayne State, and I was working at the news station and working for Fox News. So I was a news writer, and I thought I would end up being maybe a TV anchor or something, or you know, or a journalist for a print magazine or newspaper. But poetry was calling me in a different kind of way. And in 1995, I had lost my dad, and the last poets came to Detroit, and I opened for the last poets, who are very like the fathers of you know, poetry and spoken word. And I opened for them. And they said, "Hey, you ever come to New York? You know, you call us." So I went for my cousin Alexis was graduating from NYU, so I went to New York for my first time with my family, saw her graduate, and I fell in love with Harlem and Brooklyn. I was like, "What is this place? You know, I need to stay here." And the Sony Music was having an audition on the street, literally, for for singers and saxophone players. And I was like, "Oh," I walked up, my family was at Sylvia's. We're doing like the typical tourist thing in New York. And I said, "I'm a poet. Can I perform?" They said, "Yeah, it's $20 to fill out the application." And I did it. Make a long story short, they pulled me to the side. And I mean, people were clapping on the street. I did 3 poems. And they said, "We don't want you to be in this competition. We'd like you to come as our special guest. Can you be here are you in town on Monday?" And I was like, "Oh no, I live in Detroit." And I was like, "But I can change my ticket." So I changed my ticket and I stayed. And my family went back to Detroit, and I stayed in New York. And I did that show. It was a huge show. And I performed, and the people went crazy. You know, I was on the bill with oh God, I mean, people who are like famous now, you know, but like I gave a name, their names, a saxophone player that was on the show. What his name escapes me, but he got signed to MJ Records right after that. And so I did that, and to me it was just a sign that I was supposed to go. And so I went home and I quit my job at the TV news station, and I moved to Brooklyn. And 5 months later, I did the Apollo, and my life changed. Yeah. My life changed. I'd been living in Brooklyn for 5 months, and someone saw me at the Brooklyn Moon Cafe, which is the popular poetry spot then. I went to New York to find the poets, and like literally, I had the New Eurekan Poetry Aloud book, and I was looking at the names in the book. I said, Reggie Gaines, okay, all right, there, I'm gonna find him. You know, Willie Perdomo, I'm gonna find him. Tony Medina, who are these people? I want to know them. These are my peers, you know. And I went there, and I found these. They're my friends to this day, you know. And so it's really beautiful. But I went there kind of in pursuit of this thing, and I was by myself, you know, in Brooklyn. And I made friends quick on the art scene. But I was performing at the Brooklyn Moon Cafe. My friend Maurice Dwyer, he's my friend to this day, saw me at the Brooklyn Moon and said, "You know what? I'm an associate producer over the Apollo. You should come read your poems there." I was like, "At the Apollo? Like Showtime at the Apollo?" I was like, "Okay." And just being from Detroit, no stage really scared me. I was like, I performed at hair shows in Detroit. We didn't have a bunch of, you know, cappuccino drinking, you know, cute little cafes where people snap fingers. We didn't have that. So I performed any microphone that was hot. I was reading my poem at Floods, at Fox Theater, at the State Theater. We had the hair shows. It didn't matter. The DJs turned on the music. I want to kick a poem in the middle of a dance floor. Like, I didn't care. And so the Apollo was just another stage, and it had people of color. And I was like, well, maybe they won't boo me or whatever, you know, but maybe they'll at least clap, maybe, you know. So I wasn't that scared. But I did the Apollo. Needless to say, I did the audition. Maxine Lewis, who is my friend to this day, who got me on that show, who booked everybody for the show in the 90s. And in the 90s, when I did it, everybody was watching the Apollo. It came on at 1 o'clock in the morning. Steve Harvey was the host. Kiki Shepard was there. And these are people I've been in touch with, you know, throughout my career. And Steve and Kiki, I've actually done some shows with, funny enough. You know, she's real good people. But I went on there, and no one expected me to win, including me. And there were some guys actually doing the Temptations. It was like 5 guys. I'm from Detroit. They were like doing the Temptations well, and I was like actually screaming for them to win. And I was like, "Oh my God, they're gonna win! They're gonna win!" And then I couldn't believe I won, and I won, and it was like, okay, I just won the Apollo, and then I won. And then I won again, and I won again, and it was really ridiculous. And I ran out of clothes because they taped 3 shows in a day. So I had to, like, the next day, the third time, I was like, I don't have anything else to wear. They're like, well, just wear what you wear here. I'm like, oh my God, some jeans? Great. So I just wore some jeans for my third win, and I came back the next day to shoot the 2 more shows. I won again and again. And after 5 wins, they just said, we're going to just retire you. And we're going to, you'll. And then eventually they made me an Apollo legend and kind of just retired me. They did this. I was sitting in Harlem in my apartment, and people were calling me saying, congratulations. I'm like, what? They're like, oh, well, you're an Apollo legend. Did you know that? And I was like, no. They could have invited me. I could have waved. I live up the street, from 125th Street. So that was a big life-changing moment for me. And I haven't looked back since, yeah. So that's a part of the career. That was the beginning of the career path, and then I've worked very, very hard to create an institution around what I do, and that's why I'm still working.